All right, today I'm going to work on desensitizing Atlas to more touch on his hindquarters and hind legs. So really right now he's good with his face, his neck, his shoulders, withers, on his back, belly, and then front legs. And then we're just going to work on like his flank and behind. So that's where we really need to work on now. So I'm going to start up here on his neck and his chest and kind of just remind him of what the touching is like it's the same old thing, not a big deal. And then I'm just going to gradually make my way backward toward his flank, and just as soon as I get a little bit further and he's relaxed, I'm just going to click and feed and work my way back. So it's going to be real easy, nothing crazy. And he has not been touched back here before, so that's why we're going to do it nice and slow. So he's been touched on his legs, so he's good with that, but I'm just kind of reminding him about it and just making the whole process really nice and relaxed. So his neck's pretty relaxed. He's not super worried. He's taking the hay. He's going after the fly, so he's not frozen and super worried. So that's great. He lets me touch all the way down to his hoof. That looks nice. I'll click him for that. And then go ahead and feed him. So I have him standing here at the mounting block just to have a little bit of a barrier between me and him. If your horse is really kind of skittish and worried about this type of touching, I would definitely recommend some protective contact. I do that with Castor later on. So there I'm going to kind of keep reaching back toward his flank here. So that looks really nice. I'm going to click him while my hand's on there and then go ahead and feed him. So I will show that in Castor's video once I get those up, because I do all of his desensitizing to touch with protective contact, because he was a lot more tense than Atlas was in the beginning, and so I did it all from the other side of the fence. So that's also a great way to do it. So I just kind of move the mounting block back a little bit, and then I'm just going to keep on petting him and just getting my hand a little bit further under his belly and then clicking and feeding him. So obviously the mounting block's not going to completely save me if he freaks out, but it does provide somewhat of a barrier. If he were to kick out, that's kind of there, and it just gives us a little bit of space. You don't have to use it. It's not necessary. And the horse has to be used to moving around it, to hear, like kind of hitting his hoof against it, hearing the sound it makes, because if he's never heard those sounds before and he does do that while you're desensitizing, he could freak out and run away. So Atlas is used to that. I've done other stuff where he comes up to the mounting block and things like that in other videos, so he's completely used to that. So that's important before you start. But I'm just going to work my way back down here on his hip and his flank. So that looks good. So I'm going to click him there while my hand was on his hip and go ahead and feed him. And he's just going to munch on some hay. It keeps him nice and relaxed and not too worried. And he's still kind of in the process of taking other treats out of my hand. So works out well. And I'm just going to kind of scoot this back. And he's a little worried, so he's like, oh, I think maybe you're supposed to be up here by my shoulder. Like, no, just bring him back up so he knows how to target my hand. So I'm just going to ask him to come back up. I'll click him and go ahead and feed him. So it's a little bit of both things with Atlas, because he has got to get used to the touch on his hindquarters, and he's got to get used to me being back there. So that's why protective contact is really good. But he's just a little confused because he's used to me being just kind of on his shoulders. And so you don't want to wait too long and only do desensitizing on their shoulders. And then once you start moving positions, they're like, oh no, you're not supposed to be there. And they might not be super worried, but they will just automatically kind of place you where they think you're supposed to be. And then it just can be a little bit more difficult because you don't want to punish them, but it can be harder to correct them all the time when you're just trying to work on that one thing. You kind of have to work on two instead. So let him eat this, and I'll go ahead and desensitize a little bit more. So I kind of start again up where he's comfortable and then work my way back. I'm always keeping aware of where my bag is, if it's going to slip around or make noise and might worry him or something. So you just kind of got to be aware of what's going on. But Alice is pretty relaxed here. So I'm going to rub down his hindquarters. He's a little bit unsure. He's just kind of moving away. He's not real nervous. He might just think that I'm supposed to be on that side of him, because he didn't really seem super worried. His head's not real tense. He didn't move in a tense way. He moved in a relaxed way. So he was just probably a little bit confused. So I'll just set him back up here and go ahead and try again. There we go. So I click him while my hand's on his hip there, and then go ahead and feed him. And it's really good for them to see you kind of moving down the side of them too, like starting at the shoulders and working your way back, because then they're going to get used to that approach, you moving around, and then the sensation of being touched in different places. So lots of different things. So I'll go ahead and touch him on the belly again, up on the hindquarters, a little bit further down on his hip. Go ahead and touch on his hip again. So I'm just working my way back nice and gentle. So he wants to move again a little bit. That's all right, not a big deal. I'm just gonna kind of wait for him, and then I'll reposition him. I think he's just looking at something right now. So I'll go ahead and have him target my hand. I do have him come up to the mounting block too. I do a little bit of both, like he'll come up to it and stand next to it, and then also I'll move it to him. So we kind of do both things there. So he's pretty good with that. So I clicked in there while my hand was on his hindquarters. And it kind of worked out that he moved around a little bit, because then you could see both sides while I'm still working on the same side. Like you can kind of see different angles of what I'm doing. So I start on the withers, kind of work my way back down, and then I'll click him right there while my hand's on there, and then I'll go ahead and feed him. So it's just a little bit at a time. It's just approaching and retreating, and then as long as the horse is staying relaxed while your hand is on them, then I'll go ahead and click at the furthest point that you've made it to, and then feed. And if the horse gets worried, it's not a big deal. You can just go back a step and start petting him a little bit closer to his shoulder. So I'm just waiting for him to finish chewing here. Okay, so again, start at the withers. Kind of mess with his hair here. And work my way back down. Very nice. His tail's nice and relaxed, like his ears are turned and listening to me, but he's not tense. And usually when, like, they're gonna listen to you regardless when you're kind of in that area, because they can see you, and then they're just gonna listen with their ears tipped back. The difference is gonna be more in the head and neck position. They're gonna have their head up and their neck muscles tense. So that's really what you want to look for. If you notice that your horse is tense, I would just go back a little bit. So maybe if Atlas was tense right now while I'm working down his hind leg, I would just kind of go back and work on his belly and make sure he was good with that, and then kind of get a little bit further and just kind of go back a step. So you don't want to go too fast with that, but he seems pretty good here. So he's nice and relaxed. Because you don't want to push it and keep going and then the horse runs off or kicks out or something like that. If you notice that he's tense, it's all right. Go back a step and make sure he's okay with it. So again, he's just kind of positioning me next to his shoulder, not a big deal. So I'll just ask him to come over and stand in the correct position, and then I'll go ahead and go back to what I was doing. So I'll go ahead, went up to him and then clicked him for that, because he allowed me to go up to him and then touch all the way down past his hips. So pretty good. And then I'm just going to gradually continue down that back leg. Again, start up by the withers where he's cool, and then work my way down. And you could even go a little bit faster than this, because he's pretty cool with this. I could have kept going down his hind leg a little bit more, but I was just making sure that he was fine. He was moving a little bit, so I wanted to go nice and slow. If he was standing still a little bit better, I probably would have gone a little bit faster, but you don't have to go super fast. It's more important that the horse is relaxed, you're relaxed, and the lesson's going well than the speed it takes. Reach down on his legs, so once my hand was kind of down above his hock there, I'll click and then go ahead and feed him. I think there's a bug in my hair. Nope, I'm good. Okay, so back to petting. Really good. And I kind of keep an eye on him, but you want to make sure that the body's nice and relaxed too. So you want to see what the head's doing, kind of see how the tail's being held, and then notice how much tension he's holding his body too. He's using his tail, he's swishing it, and not in an aggressive way, just trying to get the flies. It doesn't clamp down real tight, so all those are good things. His neck is nice and level, and it really doesn't change at all when I go back there to touch his hind leg. I'm just reinforcing him a lot, like he's got a lot of hay, just making this a super positive experience for him. I'll click him there when my hand was kind of right above his hock. I'm kind of staying just a little bit away with my body, just in case he were to get a little bit worried. And he has been desensitized to the whips and the rope already, so he's used to being touched on his hind legs, just not with my hand. And I'll go ahead and end the session for the day on a good note.